This meeting is being recorded.
We are looking at naked or nude as it is stated in the Old Hebrew context. Now, it is taken out of verse 25 in chapter 2, and from yesterday we knew that there was an authority structure. We knew that the two has become one, representing the love equation that is represented in the Godhead as well, the three being one. Here we see that it is openness. It says here in this verse, and the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. And so we see it, and were the two naked, both Adam and his wife, and they were not ashamed. But we need to see this Greek word here, gymnoi, which we will use later on to help us understand it better. But in the ancient description of the Hebrew, this word nude is used instead of naked because it flows through into the next chapter, verse 1, which is in those days where there were no verse chapter breaks, it would have just flowed from this verse to that verse. So we can see here, now the serpent was more crafty. This word crafty and this word nude was naked, was the same root word than any beast of the field which Adonai Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, indeed has Elohim said, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden. So we see without chapter verse breaks, this nude here was talking about the smoothness of skin. This subtle here, which is the same root word in the Hebrew, was talking about smoothness of speech. So we see something strange happening here as we see the play of words. The smoothness of speech, which got woman talking about the instruction that God gave to man, seems to be the main focus, because the smoothness of speech could get the woman saying things she may not have known. But the man who was standing beside the woman, who was supposed to be the cower, was not also doing anything. So this is what happened. As soon as they did the wrong thing, they now become naked. And there's another understanding to this word here. Now, what was the thing that they did wrong and what had happened? They ate of the fruit and they had their spiritual nature die. And when their spiritual nature died, the eyes of their understanding opened to see themselves naked. This is what verse 337 says. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed leaves of fig tree together and made for themselves loin covering. As we understood in yesterday's account, because of the sin and because of the other tree that is there, God had to chase them out of this paradise, the Garden of Eden, and they had to live outside of this Garden of Eden. So we can see that what has happened through that guilt of disobedience, because they were free-willed in nature, the guilt has caused them to sense a nakedness about themselves. So they were sensing that they were naked because of the guilt, and there was the blame game that went on. So the nature had started moving away from that love situation into a blame game situation, because the likeness needs to still grow in mankind. We are in the image of God, but the likeness still needs to grow. So what happens in the place of likeness? So we took that same word here and look at nudity in the New Testament to try to figure out how his word exposes our nudeness, our nakedness rather. For the word of Elohim is living, and he acts effective and is sharper than any double-edged sword, and piercing through even to differentiate between the soul and the spirit, and between the joints and the marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and the schemes of the heart. And that's where the problem was, the schemes of the heart. But the next verse gives us even better understanding. And there is no hidden creature from God's sight, but all things are naked and laid bare before the eyes of the possessor, with whom we are to give an account. So without growing in his word, we will always have a challenge, because God can see that we are not growing. We will be in that state of carnality. We will be in the state of blame game, and that will continue. So what happens in his body then? Because we come with this level of maturity and we do not know the word deep enough to be hot, and we are also not cold, so we be lukewarm. And because we are lukewarm, God will say, I shall spit you out of my mouth. And because you say, but I'm rich and I have found strength and I have no need of anything, which is what most of our churches are becoming, self-sufficient, very knowledgeable in the things of the head knowledge rather than the heart knowledge, so that they don't know how to act it out because they're not hot in the way of the word. And God completes this verse by saying, and you do not know that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. So what happens in the end? I guess the parable of the 10 virgins makes it quite clear what happens when the bridegroom comes and 5 of them did not have oil and had to go and buy that oil, while the 5 that were ready, when he came suddenly, joined him and went off, and the door was closed. When the other 5 came, God says, I do not know you. And so in the end, he says, behold, I'm coming like a thief, in Revelation 16 verse 15. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garment. So we need to remain watchful and not naked, lest we shall walk naked and they shall see his shame. So guys, let's be ready for the coming bridegroom. See you guys soon.